I'm back again to tell you all about Sleepy Drew, a family-owned small business where comfort meets style for moms and their little ones. Their adorable PJs come in 2-piece sets or zip-ups, and they're comfy, durable, and even have antibacterial qualities. These pajamas are designed by a mom with moms in mind. My listeners can even receive a 15% discount on their first order by using the code QUIETConnection, all one word, at checkout. Shop now, and when you get your jammies, post a picture on social media, tag Quiet Connection, and let us know why you love Sleepy Drew. Make bedtime the best time with Sleepy Drew. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. In this episode, I'm connecting with Jess, known as NICU Mamahood to her followers on social media. Jess recounts her experiences of navigating the NICU twice, as well as how she advocated for her mental health needs along the way. Jess is sharing her journey with moms and parents through NICU Mamahood in order to document her life with her boys, as well as build a community with other parents and caregivers. Here's Jess. Hello. Today I'm here with Jess. Jess, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to talk to you. This is like a repeat of everything I just said to you. But Jess is on Instagram, and that is how we met. And we comment on each other's things all the time, and we like chat all the time. And this is the first time we get to like meet each other. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too.
So rather than have me list everything about you that I have in my notes, I would love it if you could sort of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you were before you became Jess the mom.
Yeah, so I don't know who I was before. That feels like so long ago. My name is Jess Wagner. I am NICU Mamahood on Instagram and Facebook. I am a two-time preemie mom, so I have 2 little boys, Liam and Lucas, my Liam was born at 28 weeks, and he was in the NICU for 68 days. And then my son Lucas was born 18 or 19 months later. I can't remember. That's terrible, but
it all blends together.
Yeah, so he was born after Liam, and Lucas was a 30-weeker. He was 30 weeks, 6 days, so almost 31, but not quite.
Just got there.
And he spent 49 days in the NICU. So that's my journey in a nutshell. And yeah, and so since then I've been on Instagram and Facebook just kind of sharing my story and doing, I don't know, the best I can, I guess. So yeah.
Doing yeah, like we both said, just like doing what we can to like, I don't know, we're just doing it.
Yeah, we're just doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Instagram and Facebook have been an outlet for me because I feel like so many other moms connect, and it's just been really neat to see a community come around me, and I feel so supported in that way. And I've had so many moms reach out to me and be like, hey, if you need a listening ear, I'm here. And I'm like, yeah, same to you. And I get to connect that way, and it's been really neat. Yeah, so yeah, that's me, I guess.
That. That's exactly what you are with me. Like I came across your account, or I don't know how it happened.
I just one either.
I really don't know. And then all of a sudden it's like every other day we're just kind of like cheering each other on with little things, and that it's crazy. A lot of people have such a negative connotation around social media, and I can see that 100%.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like this community, it's been really, really supportive.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like I've had a couple negative comments here and there on my account. Like if a reel will blow up for some reason and like gets to accounts that don't necessarily understand what I'm doing or what I'm about. Sometimes then I'll get some negative comments, but like for the most part, I just can ignore them because I know that they're not who my target audience is, and so it's kind of like it's fine.
Yeah. Girl, you've had reels blow up. You're killing it. But that's a whole other thing. I need to learn. I need to learn how to do that stuff. But
I wouldn't say I really know. I'd say it's luck. So
yeah, I think at this point that's what it is. Who were you before? Like what were you into? What were you like passionate about, or maybe still are?
Yeah, so I would say I've always been really passionate about art. I love to create. I love to be creative. As far as like what I'm passionate about, that's probably the majority of my heart is for like art and also like helping people. I've always been someone who loves to help people. I love in any way possible. So I worked at an organization where they have like group homes for adults with intellectual disabilities. I loved that job. I left there because it got to be a little too stressful and I was burnt out. But I loved working there. I loved everything about that. I mean, and I went from changing adult diapers to like just hanging out with them and having a good time. So it was a really big spectrum, but it was really good. So and we call them briefs, not diapers, but yeah, it's So I don't want anyone to be like, oh, she called them diapers. So
oh my God, no, this is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah. So but yeah, I really enjoyed that, and again, it lines up with who I am. I just love to help people. I love to include. I love to do art, and yeah, I would say that's who I am. I mean, at my core, I am very just creative, and I love mission work too. Like I am a firm believer in Christ, and so I feel like a lot of what I do, I don't really necessarily share that as much as like on NICU Mamahood and stuff. Like I'll say like God is good and that kind of thing, but I don't really share that my faith too much, just because I want it to be more broad. Like I want people to be able to relate to my content, and it not be necessarily faith-based all the time. But yeah, that's another part of who I am. So
yeah. And that's important. That's important to you, and that's important to your story. And I can 100% relate that there are like, I've had to separate myself. Like Quiet Connection is not me. Mm-hmm. Quiet Connection is not Chelsea. Like my personal account, I'm not quiet about the things that I believe in, but that sense of like wanting to connect and help others, mm-hmm. like, yeah, that NICU Mamahood is amazing, and it is doing that, and I love it. Also, unrelated, whether this makes it into the episode or not, we'll see, but I also cannot keep track of like who I met through who and who knows who and who follows who. But like,
yeah. So
I had another guest a couple of weeks ago, Lindsay Basler, but she's also like a PMAD survivor and like birth trauma and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You guys would super hit it off. Like you are, I'm like trying to make a connection right now. So like, A, your personalities just remind me of each other. B, she's super creative and like loves to make things with her hands and stuff like that. I'll send you her info. You may already be following her. Yeah.
I don't think I am. So yeah, send that to me.
Yeah, she you guys would really get along. Anyway, back to you. This is your time.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the connection. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, just chatting with you, I'm like, oh my God, this is just like this. Yeah. Anyway, so let's start down your journey. The question that I ask everybody, and it's such a lame question, but it gives me a really good background, is like, did you always picture yourself being a parent?
No, not at all. So I grew up, and my history is I was adopted by my stepdad. My mom remarried after her first marriage, and just for time's sake, I'll just say my dad entered my life again as an adult, and there's been a lot of healing with that. And so I feel like my dad is my dad again, and so that's been really neat. But part of the reason as I was growing up that I loved adoption so much was because I was adopted by my stepdad. But I also just feel like I never wanted to bring a kid into this world. I didn't think that was for me. I struggle with mental illness. And so I just didn't want to pass those genes down to anybody. And I thought that was not really the route that I wanted to take. And so when I married my husband at that time, that would have been 2019, I was honest with him and I said, look, I might be open to adoption, but I'm not open to having my own kids. I don't want to have kids. That's not in the cards for me. I just don't want that. And he was like, okay, like I love you and I love who you are. And so if you don't want to have kids, that's fine. So he was not pushy at all. He was not in any way trying to like shape my thoughts about that. So that was part of the reason that actually changed my mind about it. So because he just was so like loving and caring, and I was like, you know what, I don't really know that I could do it with anybody else, but I could do it with him. Like I love my husband so much, and he's just been such a huge supporter. He's my rock. And yeah, so I feel like with him it was a matter of I loved who my husband was so much that I wanted little of him, not little of me. So,
man,
I know. It's like he would be such a good dad. I can't deprive him of that. And so, so without his swaying me at all, he swayed me completely. So yeah, so he changed my mind, and yeah, and it was quite a interesting conversation when I was like, you know, hubby, I think I want to have kids, and he was like, really? Like he was like not prepared for that. But then like the more we talked about it, the more he was like, oh, I think she's serious. Yeah. So yeah, and then we decided that we were going to have kids, and yeah, that was like a whole like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Jess is having
Was everyone around you like, who is this person? Like,
well, I didn't really talk about it too much with like most people, because like it's not really something like, oh, I don't want to have kids. Like I talked about it with my husband or like my fiance at the time, but like I didn't really talk about it with a whole lot of people, so I don't think it was like a surprise to everybody.
So you decided.
Yeah, I decided.
And then what was that journey like? So like you're obviously that's going to take a mental shift, and you have a history of mental health challenges. So did you sort of go into this with any sort of preparation, or did you just like say, all right, we're here we go?
Yeah. So I had like so I talked to my psychiatrist because I am on mental health meds. And so I talked to my psychiatrist at the time, said, hey, I'm looking to get pregnant, and I just want to know like what that's going to look like for me. And so he and I talked about it, and essentially he said, we're going to leave you on the meds that you're on, because he said there is risk to that, but he said, I think the benefit outweighs the risk. So that was a challenge for me to kind of weigh that risk and say like, okay, well, I need to be stable throughout this, not like going wishy-washy everywhere. So yeah, that was a conversation I had with my psychiatrist. And then, so then we decided we were going to start trying. And I was actually on the depot shot previously. So I was on that for, I want to say like 5 years, like longer than you're supposed to be. But the reason was because I have PMDD really bad. So like I get really bad like depressive spells right before my period, to the point where I'm like suicidal like every month, and it was just awful. And so it was like, I know that that's what it is, so I need to just not get my period, and that's what I thought was the solution. So then as I was going off of the depot shot, like I think my last dose was 3 months before I was like, you know what, I think I want to have kids, which 3 months is like, you're supposed to get the next one. So I just didn't get the next one. And then my husband and I started trying, and it just was not happening for us. It took a long time for me to get my period back, and for me to just, I guess, ovulate again, because, you know, it totally messes with your system when you're on a shot where I didn't get my period at all. So yeah, it took seven months of trying, but I would say 2 months of that was actually trying, because I got my period like once or twice, and then I was pregnant.
Okay.
So like we were trying but not trying, because like in my mind I was
trying,
thinking,
but it was like the ball's not in the court right now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. Like we're like not really. Yeah. Anyway, but it took a really hard mental toll on me, because I was like, oh my gosh, I said I'm ready, and I have to wait 7 months to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm ready, and all my life I've never been ready for this, and now I'm like, let's do this, and it was like, no, it's not happening yet. So that was really hard. Yeah, but then in April of 2021, I found out I was pregnant with, then I didn't know I was pregnant with Liam at the time, but I found out I was pregnant. And I had like months prior bought like a mug for Josh that said like, fact, you're going to be a dad, from like Dwight Schrute on,
The Office.
Yeah. So I got him a mug that said, fact, you're going to be a dad. And so I like made him his coffee, and I like put it in that mug, and he didn't know I had gotten this mug. And so I'm like, here, hubby, have some coffee. And he was like, why are you giving me coffee? It's 6 a.m. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, here, just look at your cup. And he was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah. And like, it finally happened. And so we were like so ecstatic. And then I got sick. I was so sick. My whole pregnancy with Liam, I was so sick. I didn't have like hyperemesis gravidarum or however you say it. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't know how you say it, but
I think you did it.
Did I?
If I'm wrong, I think you did. And if I'm wrong, blame me, because I'm saying I think you did it. So.
Okay. All right. Well, either way, I wasn't diagnosed with anything other than just I was sick, and I would throw up like once or twice a day, every day. It was like enough that it was annoying, but not enough to have like a diagnosis for I got like help for it. So like it was so frustrating. But anyway, so I was like in and out of work because what would happen, which this is disgusting, but I would throw up and I would pee on my pants. And
oh no.
And so like eventually I started to like at first I didn't realize what was happening, but like I guess my pelvic floor was not very strong or something. So I like ended up, it was awful. So I had to like leave work a couple times. So felt like I was in and out of work a lot, and I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started like wearing a pad and like making sure I was like prepared for this, but it was a mess. Yeah. So then I actually got really stressed at work, and I honestly don't know the reason why anymore, but I just like was like, you know what, I need to leave my job because I'm too stressed for being pregnant. And so I decided to leave my job, and this would have been, I think, September, like, or end of August, beginning of September of 2021 then. So I was like, I don't know, I guess I would be like 5 months pregnant, something like that. And Labor Day weekend, so mind you, I'm in anniversary season right now. So Labor Day weekend, I was on my way to a picnic, and I was like, you know, something doesn't feel right. Like, I'm really crampy. I've been having like extra discharge recently. Like, it's just, something just seems off. So I called my maternal fetal medicine doctor, which I had because of the medications I was on at the time. They wanted to follow me closely because of my psych meds. Mm-hmm. So I was seeing maternal fetal medicine already, which was good. But I called them and I was like, hey, I'm feeling like something's off. I described everything that was happening. They're like, you know what? You probably should go get checked out at labor and delivery, because I was over 20 weeks at this point. They're like, you should go get checked out at labor and delivery. Just make sure everything's okay. So I went, and they were like, you know what? Your cervix is like kind of shortening, but like it's not at the point where we're concerned about it yet. So it was 2.7, I guess, centimeters. I don't remember if it's centimeters or millimeters. I don't remember.
Is centimeter like dilated?
No, not dilated. So with shortening, it's your cervix has depth to it, I guess. And so once the depth is gone is when you start dilating. And so for me, the depth was slowly dwindling. And so that was the first time I'd ever heard of preterm labor. Like, I didn't even think like anything about it before that, or the NICU. Like, I had no idea about any of that stuff. Because why would you?
Yeah, it's not something you think about.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the first time that I had ever kind of learned that preterm labor was a thing. I know that sounds like ridiculous, but like you just get pregnant, you expect it's going to be perfect, and yeah, you don't think anything of it. Yeah, so Labor Day weekend was the first time I found out about all that, and the following month I was in and out of L&D for I don't know how many times.
Oh,
like it was awful. I have pictures of like my arm because they stuck me so many times then like for IVs and stuff because I had to be on magnesium. I had to get penicillin. I had to get the betamethasone shots that they give to like help babies' lungs develop. Yeah, it was awful. But I have pictures of my arm like blown up because the IV blew out, and like so my arm is like completely like it was awful. So yeah, I was already bruised, and so the bruise like spread out everywhere and it was like it was just so awful. Yeah. So then that was my experience being pregnant, and I hated it. I didn't want to be a mom, and then I have this terrible pregnancy.
Oh my God. And you're like, excuse me.
Yeah.
This is not what I signed up for.
Exactly. I was like, what the heck? Like, I wanted, and my mom always said, she's like, I loved being pregnant. Pregnancy was awesome. And I was like, what happened here?
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard to hear. It's so hard to hear. And I think another thing that's important, and I'm sure you can echo this, is like when we're told like, well, we don't want to scare parents, or like we don't want to scare new moms, or like this, that, and the other thing. Well, okay, but our stories are valid too. So pushing the narrative of I loved being pregnant. That's so great for you. I'm so happy for you. That's valid for you. That's not valid for me.
Yeah.
So like solidarity, because talking about it and saying I hated it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Pregnancy was not a walk in the park for me. So
no.
And I'm like, my mom just could not relate. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
So she just could not understand. And I was like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to understand. Just know I hate it.
Yeah. Like, I think in those moments, like, we're looking for like, okay, cool. Stop telling me how great it was for you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be like, you don't have to tell me like, oh, I don't get it. Like, what's going on? I don't get it. Just let's just be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm here. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And my mom, she's one of my best friends. Like, I love my mom. She's super supportive, but she just didn't help me by saying, my pregnancies were amazing. Well, I don't know what's wrong with yours. And I'm like, I don't know either.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of things that she said throughout the journey that she would like that I was like, no, actually. But then I would tell her like, hey, that wasn't really okay. And she'd be like, oh, okay, sorry. But yeah.
No, I mean, I'm glad she was receptive to that.
Yeah, me too.
So you had not really thought about preterm labor. You'd not really thought about any of those things, which, just like you said, you don't go into a pregnancy thinking about the complications. You just don't. Take me to the point where little man decided it was time to come into the world. Where was your mind at then? And listeners, I want to, and Jess, I'm being super sensitive because like you just said, you're in anniversary zone right now. I am also in anniversary zone right now. I know how difficult this is. So talk about it as you are comfortable, but be mindful of your own boundaries.
Yeah. So Liam was born on October 8th of 2021. So he was exactly 28 weeks and by like a couple hours. So he was born at 4:24 in the morning. So I had started going into labor that Thursday. And so, I went into L&D Thursday morning and not really thinking anything of it. But like I knew I was having contractions at that point. And so I walked in. I actually drove myself to the hospital having contractions because my husband was like, I have to go to work. Like, we didn't have any more time off work.
Yeah.
Until like we had, I think, 1 or 2 days left, and it was like for baby to be born. So,
Yeah.
because we had just been in and out so much. So he's like, I have to go to work. Like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, you go to work. I'll drive myself to the hospital. And this was not a cut against my husband. It just was what it was. And so, yeah, I drove myself to the hospital having contractions. And I got there. I walked in and they were like, yeah, you're like 4 centimeters dilated. His head's dropped. Like, we need to get you like going here. And I was like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know. And so, so yeah, actually, I think I was 2 centimeters at that point. But anyway, it was more than I had been. So
Yeah.
so yeah, his head had dropped and everything. Like my cervix had shortened completely, and he was coming. And so I spent the day. I think technically it's an antepartum room. Like it wasn't a labor and delivery room.
Okay.
So it was like or I think they consider them the C-section rooms or something like that. Like, it's not a room
where
for
you're
birthing.
waiting.
Yeah, exactly. So I spent the day in one of those, and he was actually born in the same room because they weren't expecting him to be born, and he was. So,
Whoops.
yeah. So then I think it like the NICU neonatologist came in and talked to me about like what it looks like for a baby to be born at 27 or 28 weeks, because at that point I was 27 and 6. They said that there is a possibility that he might need to be transferred because of birth weight and that kind of thing. And that had been the month-long journey too. Like, we might have to switch hospitals, that kind of thing, because our local hospital can only handle so much. So he entered the world at 4:24 in the morning, and the neonatologist earlier that day had said he probably won't cry because his lungs aren't developed enough. So don't be scared if he doesn't cry. But he cried. He cried as soon as he came out, and it was the tiniest cry I've ever heard in my life, because his lungs are so little. And he was born at 2 pounds, 14 ounces. So that was actually more than what they had anticipated, because they said he'd be about 2 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So he was 2 pounds, 14, which is almost 3, which is really good.
Yeah.
For a 28-weeker. So, yeah. So then within seconds, he was whisked away to the NICU. And I had nurses telling me, like, look down, you're going to miss him. Like, because I had, like, put my head back thinking, like, oh, my gosh, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, this pregnancy is done. Not really thinking, oh, yeah, my son had just been born. And so he came out in 2 pushes. He was, like, ready to go. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah. So I actually remember asking the nurses to repeat the instructions for how to push. Like, I said it like that. I was like, please, can you repeat that? Like, because I was like so out of it for the magnesium that I was on, and like, yeah, it just was a mess. But yeah, he was born and he was whisked off to the NICU, and suddenly the room just felt quiet. Like, I had delivered the placenta, and everyone was kind of like gone, and I was just in the room with my husband, and I was like, what just happened? Like, I didn't know. Like, I mean, I knew what happened, but it just got quiet, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, I had my baby, but like, then I just like went back to sleep. It was like, it just was like such a weird experience. I was like, it was almost like an out of body experience where I was like, I guess I'll go back to sleep now. Like, I was exhausted because I'd been up most of the night. So he and I went back to sleep, and then at 8:00, it would have been a little bit. So like I said, I had him at 4:24, and then at 8:00 was his care time, his first care time, and they said that we could go see him. So, but previously, the nurses, like my nurses, had gone into the NICU and took pictures of him and videos and stuff and showed me, so that way I could at least see his face. And I love that they did that, and I hate that they did that, because that was the first look of my baby's face was on a phone screen, and he was intubated at that point, so he had everything all connected to him, and yeah, it was just crazy. Like, I look back at that and I'm like, I wish they wouldn't have done that, because that will forever be my first memory of Liam. So yeah, so at 8:00, like I said, they came in and they were like, did you want to go see him? And I said, sure. So I got in the wheelchair. They took me over and yeah, so I was really woozy and like out of it because, again, I was on magnesium drip, which is just awful, awful, awful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went and saw him for a little bit and it just all felt not real. So, yeah, it was just like really odd and like an out of body experience. Like I don't remember a lot of it anymore, like of that first time seeing him. But I remember vividly the pictures that, like those pictures that were on my phone, I remember vividly in my mind. Like I can pull them up. I see them. I see every little detail of them. So it's just interesting how, yeah, I don't remember meeting Liam. I remember the pictures of him.
Yeah. How like the trauma imprinted.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's really interesting. And you're certainly not alone in that. I've heard that before, but it's interesting to think about too, that the first time you saw your son was on a screen.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yeah. I just had mom brain and my train derailed, but
it's okay.
It happens.
It happens to all
quite
of us
frequently. So you're sort of like at this point almost like dissociated, it sounds like everything was a whirlwind, going from constant monitoring and constant attention to you to sort of like everything being quiet and everything, the focus is now on your baby.
Yeah.
What were those first few days like? Because I'm assuming you were in the hospital for a little bit.
Yeah. So, I was in the hospital. So I guess I had him on a Friday. I was discharged Saturday morning.
The next day?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
But I will say, I think that was divine planning because, so I was discharged. I want to say it was like around lunchtime, because I went home and my mom had made me lunch and she had cleaned my house and everything. And my husband brought me home. And then like I had been home maybe like a half an hour to an hour, and I got a call from the NICU because like before we were discharged, they went over like, this is our phone number. You can call all of like the ins and outs of the NICU. And so I got a call from the NICU. I answered and they were like, we wanted to catch you before you left. Liam had a pulmonary hemorrhage, so he had bleeding in his lungs, and he needs transferred to a bigger hospital that has a jet ventilator because we don't have that capability here. And so at the time, I remember thinking like, okay, like he just needs transferred. That's fine. All right.
Yeah.
So we went back to the hospital. We had to sign off and all that because he had to be emergency helicoptered to the other hospital. And so I went in and like my husband and I were like prepared to go to the other hospital with him, and they said you can't fly with him, like you have to drive there. So we waited for the other hospital to get there, and they flew in, and next thing I know, I'm driving out of L&D, like out of where the NICU is, and to my right I look over and my son is being wheeled in this portable incubator up to the helicopter. And that is a memory that lives vividly in my brain as well.
Yeah.
And so we drove to the next hospital. And again, I don't think it really hit me what was going on until a couple weeks later. We had the same doctor. The neonatologists kind of go back and forth between hospitals. And so we had the same doctor that had said, hey, he had a pulmonary hemorrhage. He needs transferred, while we were in the Harrisburg NICU, which would be the like bigger hospital. And so she was there at the Harrisburg hospital, and she said, I didn't expect him to do this well. Like, she was like, I really was not expecting him to do this well. Yeah, and I remember that too, where I was like, oh, like, I didn't realize how severe this was, like,
Yeah.
you're in the moment, and like Josh and I are always just like joking together and like having fun together, and so we were like, we didn't realize our son was literally dying.
Yeah.
We had no idea, and like the doctors didn't tell us, like, like they told us the severity, but like it didn't click.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just very interesting how trauma works, because now looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? Like, my son was dying and I was here giggling with my husband. Like,
you were in like, self-preservation mode.
Yeah. So it just is like, yeah, I honestly don't think I would have got through it otherwise. Because it was, yeah, it just really bizarre, like, how we got through that. But, yeah, so he was transferred to the bigger hospital, and he was there for 4 weeks, through the end of October, beginning of November. And then he was transported back to the smaller hospital because he was doing better. But that first week of his life, I wasn't allowed to hold him. So he was on the jet ventilator when he was first transferred. And then after that, he was transferred to like a regular intubation ventilator. And so, yeah, his first week of life, like, it was Friday to Friday, I didn't hold him. I wasn't able to hold him. And that was extremely hard. When I have PTSD episodes now, it's like, I'm holding him like against me, and I'm like, just let me hold my baby. Just let me hold my baby. So, so I still have flashbacks to that time where I was like, I just want to hold him. Just let me hold him. And yeah, so that's really hard. I mean, I can't imagine what was going through my mind, because I can't put myself back there, if that makes sense. Like, I can't. Yeah. It's just like, I just wanted to hold my baby, and they wouldn't let me. So yeah, that was really hard.
I mean,
that's putting it lightly.
I was gonna say, I'm like, that's such a
it was honest. The hardest thing I've ever done was wait to hold my baby, and also leave him in the NICU and go home. It would have been his first night in the big hospital. So I had been discharged that Saturday. It would have been that Saturday night. I went home. My husband stayed with him at the NICU, and I went home because he said, Jess, you really need your rest. Like, you need to sleep, and I'll stay here with him. He'll be okay. If anything happens, I'll call you. I said, okay. I went home. I got to the parking lot, and I completely lost it. I was like, like, I can't leave my baby. It's my baby. Like, that was the first time I actually felt like he was mine. Was when I left the hospital. I was like, this is not natural. This is not normal. Like, I'm leaving my baby in the hospital. So that was that in addition to not holding him, those were the two hardest parts of the NICU for me. Yeah. And to this day, like I said, if I have like a PTSD episode where I am like having a flashback, that's where I flash back to, is leaving him in the NICU and not being able to hold him.
Yeah. I can't relate in terms of the NICU experience, but in terms of being separated from my baby, I can absolutely relate. And that need to, like, I need to hold my baby. I feel that. So you went through all of this, and there's so much more to it. There are so many more little intricacies and feelings, and then you decide to have another baby.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
You don't for a minute think that, like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen again.
Yeah,
but it did.
Yeah,
it happened again. How was this experience different? Was it pretty similar? Like,
yeah. So with Lucas, I had a preconception appointment with MFM, the maternal fetal medicine, and they said, we can lower your chances of this happening again by 40% just by doing progesterone suppository vaginally. So I had that, and I started that at, I think 8 weeks. So I was 8 weeks. I started doing that. And by, I think halfway through my pregnancy, I was like, I can't, like, this, doing it vaginally is like too much.
Yeah.
So they said, you can just take it orally. It's the same thing. And I was like, the same pill? That's so gross. Like, I can either put it up in my vag or I can put it in my mouth. Like, that is so bizarre to me. But either way, I started taking it orally.
But also, why didn't you tell me that?
Why would I put it up there if I could just swallow it? Like, what?
Yeah, hello. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I guess because it's more localized and it, like,
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but like, if I had the option this whole time and you didn't tell me,
yeah, thanks.
Yeah. They said, yeah, they're like, you can just take it orally if it's too much. So anyway, I was taking progesterone, and I made it a little bit longer. Like I said, he was 30 weeks, 6 days when he was born. But I knew from early on, I was like, we're not going to make it the whole way. And so we got to 28 weeks and things were fine. And then I started having discharge again, like I did with Liam, and I started having cramping, and I was like, I think it's happening again. And they were like, well, you made it to 28 weeks. Like that was your marker. And actually I got, I could cry. So at 28 weeks, I got maternity photos done with Liam, and I didn't get that opportunity with Liam. So like at 28 weeks, exactly, like the day of 28 weeks. And it was like so weird. It was definitely a God thing for me because the photographer that did our wedding, she posted that she was back in Lancaster because she had moved on to like North Carolina or something like that. And so she was back in Lancaster. She was doing minis, and she said, I have a pay what you want session in between, like, I don't know what it was. So I was like, I don't have a lot to offer, but I would love that session. And she was like, okay, great. So we ended up getting maternity pictures done by our wedding photographer. And it was just so perfect because, like I said, I didn't get that opportunity with Liam.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And the fact that it was like 28 weeks, which is exactly when Liam was born, it was so healing for me in a lot of ways. But in other ways, I think it was just as hard. So it is what it is. But yeah. But yeah. So anyway, Lucas got with Lucas, I want to say it was 30 weeks. And then I was like, I'm not making it any more than this. I was like, this is it for me. And I remember I went to an MFM appointment. They said, you know what, your cervix really is shortening like more this time. Like it's coming down. Like I remember them saying it was like 0.7 or something like that, like 0.7 centimeters. Like it was not even a centimeter anymore. And I was like, I'm having contractions. They're like, yeah, we see. They did a non-stress test, and they're like, yeah, we see that, but we'll see you again in a week. It'll be okay. We'll see you again in a week. I went from that appointment to the hospital. I was like, this is not okay. And so I went to the hospital. They're like, we'll see. Like, you might be progressing. You might not be. Because at that point, I had been in and out again. And they're like, well, we'll just keep you for a little bit longer. And they kept me for a little bit longer. And lo and behold, here he was coming out. So,
oh my gosh.
So it was like, I started to dilate and more and all this. And I remember at one point through my pregnancy, I was 1 centimeter dilated, and they're like, well, we could walk around at 1 centimeter dilated. Like, it's no big deal. You can just be dilated, and it is like at 1 centimeter, no biggie. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean no biggie? Like, to me, that's pretty biggie. Like,
yeah, especially coming from your history.
Yeah, like I was like, this is like, all around, I was satisfied with my OBGYN. It was MFM that I struggled with a little bit. And I ended up, when I went back for my second pregnancy, I said, I don't want to see the doctor that I saw when I was pregnant with Liam. Yeah, that was hard too. But so I had Lucas at 30 weeks, 6 days. And honestly, I disassociated so much from his birth, from his NICU stay, that I don't remember a lot of it. And I think that was just my trauma response. I was protecting myself. And so when Lucas came home from the NICU, it took a couple months, like I want to say at least a month or two, for me to feel like he was actually my child. Because I had been through so much with Liam, I couldn't have the same feelings I had for Liam for Lucas, because I was like, I can't put myself through that again.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was taking care of somebody else's kid with Lucas. Like, it was like that much. I was so far removed from him. And now, like, I love my kids. They're both mine. Like, and like, I get upset when people favor Liam over Lucas. Like, I love both my boys so much. Like, they're my whole world. But yeah, like I couldn't put myself back in the same place I was when I had Liam. And the other hard part about that too was I had Liam at home and I had Lucas in the NICU, and I had to somehow manage both my kids at the same time, even though I didn't feel that connection with Lucas that I had with Liam. And so that was really difficult for me, because I just wanted to be with Liam. I just wanted to be with my boy, like, that I had connection with. And so but I still showed up for Lucas. I read him books like I read Liam. I sang to Lucas. I did everything that I did with Liam, but it felt like I was going through the motions. So that was, I'm not proud to say that, because I feel like I'll get judgment for not connecting to Lucas. I still to this day feel terrible about it, because like the first couple months of his life, he wasn't mine.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do, I can't change that. Like it just, and I hate that that's how we started out. And I try really hard to not think about that. I just made a post today, actually. I made a reel today about how if I could go back in time, if I could time travel and I could go back and tell myself, like, everything's going to be okay. Every little thing is going to be okay. That was the reel I made today.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, if I could go back and tell myself, like, both your boys are beautiful, they're healthy, they're thriving, they're so happy to the point that everyone comments on it. Everyone is like, your boys are just so happy. They're always happy. And I'm like, I know, because they are. And if I could go back and tell myself that, I just feel like things would have been different. And, but I can't. And so I have to remind myself of that now. And so when I think about the times where I was disassociated, or the times that were really hard with Liam, I have to remind myself that things are good now. And in this moment, they're happy, they're healthy, they're thriving. And that's all that I can ask for. And so I have to just remind myself of that now. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's that whole being present thing. It's something I'm working on
really
too.
Hard.
It's really hard. When you go through trauma of any kind, it's really hard to not live in it. But especially when it's associated with your kids, because that's like your whole life. Like, you see them all the time. You're with them all the time.
Yeah. Going to that point, like, I feel like I haven't been present for the past 3 years. And so, like, I just started, so Liam will be 3 in October. And I just started EMDR therapy to try to help kind of process some of those trauma memories. Yeah. And so for anyone that's not familiar with EMDR, I'll just share a little bit. It has to do with right-left tapping. It like reprocesses trauma in your brain. So it like scientists have done studies where trauma will light up in one part of your brain before EMDR, and then after it lights up in like a completely different section of your brain. So EMDR literally recategorizes it in your brain, which is crazy to me to think about. But so it has to do with like right-left tapping. Like, you can tap on your shoulders, you can tap on your legs, or you can watch somebody go back and forth with their hand, or like a light bar or something like that. Like, your eye movement is the right-left movement. And so I just started that, and we've been doing prep work this like for the past like 2 months, I feel like.
Yeah,
so I go
you've been
every other
posting
week
about it.
Yeah. I go every other week right now. And we've just done prep work, and it feels both nerve-wracking, and also I feel more confident about it because we've done a lot of prep work. But even just like things like finding a happy place to go to when I'm like if I get deep into a memory or something like that, like it's all of those nuances of like, you don't want to get stuck in it. You want to process it. And so, yeah, it's been really good, but I'm nervous because next time we're going to start processing my trauma memories. So
yeah,
see how that goes, but fingers crossed.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sending you like giant hugs because I have EMDR is something my husband has done EMDR for his trauma, and it's something that I have thought about, but like I'm scared. Like so I totally get it. Like I'm scared. I don't know. So I'll be really curious to see what your feelings are on it once you get into it.
Yeah, I've heard that it can bring up stuff like when you're not in therapy, like not in your session as well. And so I am nervous, especially because I'm in anniversary season right now. So
yeah.
I'm nervous, but I'm excited because part of EMDR therapy, part of like finding a happy place is they give you like 3 different ways to find a happy place. And so one of them is picturing yourself in the future without your trauma. And so at first I pictured myself, well, at first it was hard to picture myself without my trauma because I think I'm so closely linked. It's in every part of me that I was like, who am I without my trauma? You know, like I just don't know how to separate the two. But then the more I thought about it, I pictured myself at Liam's graduation and I was just like so completely present in the moment. And that's how I want to be. I want to be present in the moment with my boys, and I'm just not capable of that right now. And so, so that was kind of like, that's not just my happy place, it's my why.
Yeah.
Because I want to be present with my kids, and I want to be able to, you know, like just be there for them in every single moment of them growing up. And so far, I haven't been. And I feel like both of us, like both my sons and I are robbed of that. So I want to change that for the future.
Yeah. And that takes incredible strength, even though I know it doesn't feel like it. It's like when you're taking those steps, it's like, this should be easy. And it's not, and it's okay to say that it's not. But what you're doing is so incredible. And the gift that you're giving not only yourself, but your kids through processing this trauma there are no words. There are no words. And you're still so fresh in it too.
Yeah.
Like this was not that long ago.
Yeah. Lucas was born 15. He's 15 months old now. So like, yeah. But I'm determined. I want to heal because I think my boys deserve that. And I think I do too. So
you do. Yeah, you deserve it. So these are my favorite kind of episodes where I make bullet points and like none of them are relevant. Because no, for real though, because this is a real conversation. This is the type of thing that I'm trying to make normal. And that you're trying to make normal. Just like talk about this stuff and talk about the scary and talk about the not scary and talk about the healing and just talk about it. You have been helping me this week with more NICU awareness stuff. So I did my weekly series on just like NICU awareness and whatnot, and I've been putting your little blips of your experiences in my stories. But I think there's so much we could go into, and I could like literally ask you questions for hours. So this is the hard part, is like focusing in on where to focus our energy. But because of the advocacy that you're doing, like right now you're sharing other people's stories too, which is so amazing, because you're not only spreading awareness, but you're giving voices to these other families that have gone through similar experiences. So I think what I want to ask you as like a lived experience expert is,
I don't know about expert, but yeah.
Well, you're an expert in your lived experience.
That's true. That's true.
Yes. What are some things that like you either wish you knew or that you want to pass on to other families who may experience a NICU stay? Like, what are some things to be aware of? What are some things to recognize within yourself? What is it, just like your top tips, I guess, or what helped you through your NICU experience?
Yeah. So I would say my top tips, which I don't think it's a one size fits all in any way. But what had helped me the most through my NICU experience was I'm trying to think of the right word, a veteran NICU mom. So she had twins at 25 weeks back in like early 2000s. So her daughters were 18 at the time that I was going through the NICU. So she had twin 25-weekers, and she was my safe place in all of that, that I was going through with Liam especially, but also with Lucas. And so since she wasn't a 2-time mom, I felt like it was a little bit more challenging for her to relate the second time. But yeah, so she had, like I said, twin 25-weekers, and she told me the best advice that she got was just to let out her feelings. And so she said she used to like scream in her car. She used to do like whatever she would need in the moment is something that she would just kind of like let herself have. And so that's something that I adopted. And also, she just let me be like in her presence. Like she just let me vent. She let me tell her what was going on without saying like, oh, you need to do this, or, oh, like, I can't believe you feel like that. Like, it was like totally judgment free, totally supportive, and just like, I'm here for you and I want to hear what you have to say. And so I have so much respect for her, and so much honestly that I wish I could give back to her. But yeah, so she was just incredible. And so some of the things that I adopted from what she told me was I screamed in my car. I screamed in my car a lot.
Yeah.
So like on our drive to the bigger NICU was like 45 minutes. And so on my way there and on my way back, I would put on worship music and I would just scream the lyrics. Because like sometimes I didn't know what to say, or I didn't know what to even pray when I was like praying about our situation. So I would just scream the worship lyrics, and it was my way of declaring like, Liam's going to live, and there's going to be peace and all this. Like I was declaring all of these things through screaming worship music. I called it my screamo worship.
You can start a new genre.
Yeah, screamo worship. But but yeah, so like I literally screamed so much I hurt my voice. Like because it really got it out for me. And so, yeah, so I would do that. But then also, like, I don't know, I feel like just being able to be myself and feel my feelings, whatever that might be, like the disassociation, I felt bad about it, but I also knew I was protecting myself. And so, like, just being able to say, like, I don't really feel connected to Lucas, and for Josh or like my husband or my family to be like, Jess, that's okay. Like what you're feeling is okay. Was so valuable to me. But yeah, other than that, like as far as my tips for the NICU, ask questions. It's always good to ask questions. I kept a NICU journal for both of them where I kept their daily weights. I kept all the notes from rounds. I have a NICU journal for both of them because it just was so helpful for me. And now I can go back and look through that and say like, oh my gosh, he did this, this, and this. And like, did he have Tylenol for his PDA? Like, yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Or like, this was the day he had his blood transfusion. Like all of these things, like I have written down. And so not that I look at that frequently because it's a lot, but if I needed the information, I have it. So yeah, keeping like a journal. There are really great NICU journals like on Amazon, or I got my first one off Etsy from forget I think it was the Potato Head Project.
I like that name.
Yeah. So I got my first NICU journal off from them, and I think it was from them. And it was like, so they said that their kiddo was born and was the size of Mr. Potato Head. So they called it the Potato Head Project. But anyway, that's a side note. But
it's a little plug.
Yeah. So that was actually my first like account that I followed that was like NICU related. And then it was like, it just grew from there because I was just searching like everywhere and anywhere for community because I needed it. The NICU is so incredibly lonely, like especially during the time of COVID where family couldn't come in and sit with us. So I was literally sitting in the NICU by myself all the time. And I have never felt so incredibly lonely in my whole entire life as I was sitting in the NICU. And so reaching out, finding community is so vital, whether it is online, whether it's in person, anything that you can find, whether it's your friends, your family. And I had to teach my friends and family like what they can say to me and what they can't. And yes, that took time and energy on my behalf, but I couldn't, like my friends didn't know. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. And so for those of you that like might have a friend or family in the NICU, I would say just like show up for them, like it is the most lonely time in my whole life. I've never experienced loneliness like the NICU. And so showing up for them in ways like, we had a friend come and mow our lawn. Josh, my husband, he was so thankful. He's like, I can't mow the lawn. I can't do it. Like I have so much other stuff going on. I can't mow the lawn. And our friend came and just showed up and mowed the lawn. Like he brought his mower and everything. Like we had a mower, but he brought his mower. He mowed the lawn, and that was so powerful. And so we remember those things. And how people just showed up for us, like, and I've learned a lot about how to show up for other people too. And like it's just crazy to me how people don't know how to interact with you. And it's like like if you're going through a hard time, like I had a friend recently who was going through a hard time, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to make you a meal. Would you prefer this or this? And can I drop it off on this day or this day? Like just giving those like little options, not like, hey, I'd like to bring you a meal. What day works for you? What would you like me to bring? Like all this stuff. Like don't give them all the options. Their brain is already thinking about so many other things. You don't need more options. So like, you need
you're
like
on mental overload.
Yeah. You need like yes or no answers. Like, hey, I want to bring you a meal on this day at this time. Can I bring this? Is that okay? And then we'd be like, yes, that would be awesome. Or no, maybe bring it the next day or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's little things that means so much. So yeah. Anyway, that's a lot, but yeah.
No, that was amazing. And it echoes what I've heard from other parents who have had NICU experiences or have had birth trauma experiences. I think or for literally anyone in your life who's going through any sort of struggle, be it mental health or physical health or just life changes. Like I know a lot of us go for that go-to, like if you need anything, let me know. And that comes from a good place, but it's not actually helpful. So like remembering to be like, I know you love, I don't know why I'm picking, all I can think of is like Chipotle. I've never even been to a Chipotle. I think we have one in the entire state. But like, so like, but like, I know you love Chipotle. I'm going to DoorDash it. Just like you said, like, do you want it tonight or tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Like, or things like that. Like taking the extra step, thinking about the person and what their needs and wants are, and taking it upon yourself so that all they have to do is just say yes or no. I think that's being echoed. So whether it's you or whether you're supporting someone, like it's really, really amazing to say, let me know what you need. It's even more amazing to say, I know what you love. Is it okay if I give it to you? Or is it okay if I do it today?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are literally a gazillion more things that I would love to chat with you about. But And I'm not even kidding. So yeah, so like we've talked about so much. There's obviously so many more intricacies in terms of how you were handling your mental health at the time and what kind of support you had. And that's an ongoing journey for you. For listeners, especially listeners who are going through a NICU experience right now, I would love it if you could sort of talk about what NICU Mamahood is all about, and where you're on Facebook and Instagram, so they know they can find you there. But like what your goals are and what you hope for to come from it.
Yeah. So NICU Mamahood started because I wrote a book. So I was starting the journey of advertising that and trying to figure out the nuances of that. And it was kind of a flop. I'm not going to lie. I haven't really sold a lot of my book. But what's really cool about it is my Instagram has kind of flourished. My Facebook has flourished. And it's become so much more than just about advertising my book. And so while I have a book out there in the world, if you'd like it, it's there. It's NICU Mamahood. NICU Mamahood, The Musings of a NICU Mama. It's on Amazon if you want to look it up, by Jess Wagner. Yeah, it's short and sweet. It's my writings from when I was in the NICU. It's poetry I wrote while I was in the NICU or about the NICU. I actually published it, I want to say, so Liam came home from the NICU December 15th. I published my book December 31st. So
crap. Oh my God.
So it was literally my writings from when he was in the NICU and shortly after he was home. I took all of that and I just kind of put it all together. I tried to write a second book, but it's not as good. I'll share that as well. So I know that's terrible to say, but like I'm being honest. So
hey, you know what?
Don't worry about the second book. Don't worry about that. First book is a good one. NICU Mamahood, The Musings of a NICU Mama. It's literally just my writings when I was in the NICU. But anyway, so I, like I said, started NICU Mamahood as a way to share about my book and my experience. And I think it grew into something so beautiful. It's my way of sharing how I'm feeling. It's my way of sharing my journey and my experiences that I've had, and for others to say, hey, me too. And so that's been so incredible. And like I've had people comment or message me, especially since I put out there like, hey, send me your NICU warriors so that I can share them. I've had people say to me like, I found your account while I was in the midst of my NICU journey, and it's been so cool to see like your boys growing and been so cool to see like I'm not alone. And like I said, the NICU is so isolating, and so I love that I've built this community that I feel like I can share how I'm feeling, and they're like, yeah, me too. And like I don't necessarily know where it's headed because it is kind of just an ever evolving. What I'm doing is kind of what I'm doing, but I would say I love where it is right now, and that I have people who comment and people who like my stuff that they're like, I feel seen. And that's really what I want it to be, is just for people to say, me too, I feel seen. I feel like my feelings I'm not the only one who feels this way. And so that's why I write so openly, honestly, and vulnerably, because I wanted that. I need that. I need someone to be able to say, you're not the only one who feels that way. Like, me too. I feel seen. So, yeah. So that's kind of NICU Mamahood. I feel like it's not perfect. It's not, I mean, I said to you before we started, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it, but I'm just doing it. And so
that's exactly
it is
how I feel. Yeah. Well, and I'll add to that, like, so I didn't have I didn't have a NICU experience. My second daughter is what they called her, a NICU drive-by. So she was only in there for a few hours before we were reunited. So I don't consider myself a NICU mom or anything like that, but your content still resonates with me so much. I think you're reaching people beyond NICU families. because it's so relatable and because it's so honest and it is vulnerable, and I find so much strength in vulnerability. So I would definitely encourage listeners to check it out, whether you had a NICU experience or not, but definitely, especially if you had a NICU experience, because what you're posting is not only informative, it is real. It's your real experiences, and you're just such a cool person. Like,
thank you.
Well, seriously, like, I mean, I don't even know how to word this properly. There are a few people that I've met through this journey that are just genuinely good people and want to cheer other people on, and you are one of those people.
Thank you.
But yeah, I love what you're doing. Everything will be linked in the show notes. Listeners, check the show notes so that you can find Jess and NICU Mamahood. But yeah, rather than literally take your entire day away from you, we're going to have to just chat again sometime. But thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for taking the time to share part of your journey with me. And I'm super excited to see where this journey takes both of us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really good to talk to you. And like I said, we've been talking on Instagram. I commented on your mug the other day, and I don't know, we just talk all the time, just randomly. Yeah.
The whole premise behind behind Quiet Connection is like, you're not alone, and how we all feel alone, and how motherhood is supposed to come with this village and this community, and it just doesn't. We have to build it ourselves. And like, you're part of my village now. Like, you are, like, because you're like, that's a really cute mug. Hey, thanks. I found it at TJ Maxx. Or I see what your kids are doing. It's like, oh my God, yay. Or like things like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Social media can be really crappy and really awful, but it can also be, if you're careful about it and you curate and set boundaries, it can be a really great place to build your community. So thanks for being a part of mine.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jess, for sharing your story with me and for being an amazing advocate for the NICU community. I'm so grateful that our paths crossed, and I love having you in my mama circle. I'm excited to see where your journey takes you. Listeners, be sure to check the show notes to find links to all of Jess's social media accounts. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.